Welcome to Fortnite Origins, where I'll be covering certain topics such as characters, factions, and realities. And one of the most notable factions I'll be covering are those from the Imagined Order, the Last Reality, and the Seven. When it comes to Fortnite Origins, I present obvious evidence to cover most of my claims, as well as something that is from the past, present, and future, and also from major chapters such as Chapter 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and currently Chapter 7. So sit back, relax, and to all my loopers out here, let's learn some lore. Ay, Geno. Like, this man can actually survive the most, despite that I explained in my previous Fortnite Origins that he's absolutely immortal and can't die. He made his appearance very strange to the point that we didn't see that coming. Like, in Shattered, he just pretended to be the visitor just to persuade us to join him, but it was actually all trapped this whole time because now it was actually him who commenced Phase 2 and is rebuilding the whole 0 point with the help and the use of Dark Voyager, his apprentice. And yes guys, while I'm saying this is actually a part 2 of Geno Fortnite Origins, which I'm going to be revamping on what is happening because this is extremely unexpected to me. Because Geno appearing in Fortnite Shattered, as I watched the live event, which I'm going to be playing a clip right here. What?
Jones!
Is this the origin? Oh wait.
Geno!
The Seven may prove useful to me. I feel
What?
Geno!
What? Geno?
He returned from dead! He's alive!
What are your orders, Master?
Oh!
He formed the Imagined Order. It's back.
Yo.
Like, I can already tell there's no returning to good right now, cause Geno is like the master manipulator of the Omniverse in a way, as what he did there was absolutely genius, because he pretended that he's the visitor from an alternate timeline or a diverged reality from Reality Zero. And the Order, his daughter, believed in that story, so did the Foundation, and the Foundation and the Order did not realize this for the past couple of months. And the reason why I didn't hear Geno this much is because he probably used a voice changer within the suit that he wore, other than his oath-bound black and yellow suit which he has underneath his visitor's suit. Well, not visitor anymore, but now it is actually his personal suit. But the biggest question of all this is, how did he pull this move? Well, this is where I'm going to be explaining it right now, guys, because this is an extreme shock to me, as I didn't even realize this too. I thought it could be either the origin, since he is voiced by a British man by the name of Ben Starr, but it turned out Ben Starr and the other actor are two completely different actors. And not only that, this visitor looked much more bigger than this visitor, because mind you, Geno probably very tall and probably very buff. And the even bigger part is that his voice is like that of medieval times, because mind you, he comes from a medieval reality where the same snapshot known as the Ageless comes from. If you compare Geno and the Ageless together, yes, I'm using Geno's Shattered version, not the comics, but him who appeared in Shattered. You could see that Geno's facial structure looks pretty different. He looks a little more bulkier and a lot more agile in a way. And you can see his eyes are gotten a little more smaller in a way since he aged when he discovered his absolute immortality. And you can see that his ancient snapshot, the Ageless, looks a lot younger. He looks like he's in his 20s. But the absolute biggest difference is his hair. You can see that Geno still kept his long hair since he was able to grow it through when he was rebuilding. And you can see the Ageless has slightly lost a little bit of melanin while still keeping the black hair, and it's still long as what Geno appeared in Shattered. I wonder if it's unclear if Epic Games is going to release a style for the Visitor Reality Unknown, since he is going to be unmasked pretty soon. Same thing as how the Foundation has his helmet broken during Shattered. We're probably gonna get that too. If I can go back to Collision, as when Geno faked his death, he turns to atoms, as a result travel to different realities, as you can see through the comics, and then you can take a look at the very end and you can see Geno fully rebuilt, and it says not the end, which means it's not the end of the war for the Seven. And because of this, Geno wants to take his vile revenge against the Seven for what they did to him, especially for his imperfect daughter, the Imagined, which died as a result. And I assume that Geno pulled this huge sneaky move as it tricked us for a couple years. Because we all thought that the last reality was implementing this, but we were all wrong this whole time. As well as myself, because I was wrong about the last reality implementing Phase 2, which I failed to realize that Geno was actually doing all this. But how did he pull this move? Well, let me explain it, because as a result of this, Geno probably went to a diverged reality of Reality Zero called Reality Unknown. And it's unclear if he actually created this reality, or if it's the 0 point just shifting that reality there, because it's not the first time that the 0 point can shift alternate reality versions of Reality Zero in a way. We've seen this in Season X, we see this in Chapter 2, Season 5, and now we've seen this through around Chapter 4, Season OG, and finally Fortnite Chapter 6 to Fortnite Chapter 7, as the integration between Battle Royale and OG is very clear. And it gives us a much more darker message as to what is actually happening over there, because how did Geno pull the strings? Well, I assume that he probably built this suit by himself. Because since he has studied the Seven for a very long time as well, since they are like the opposition of the Imagined Order, and is meant to destroy it in a way and cause a power vacuum where they would have to make themselves as their Imagined Order and they control the 0 point. But since the Foundation and the others failed to do so, Geno proves his point, because he has to tell the Foundation to prove that he can actually do all these things, and that if successful, then yeah, Geno is bad at it. But if unsuccessful, and it's about to be the end of everything, that would be the Foundation's fault, which it is. And as a result, Geno was right this whole time, because the Foundation went missing, and the Herald came to Reality Zero, she chromed the rest of the 7 members, some went missing, the Paradigm dies by sacrificing her life to Zero Fusion, and everything goes in chaos, and the island just crumbles, and the 0 point split into 7 shards. And what's crazy is that Geno, behind the scenes, probably after he was rebuilt between like Chapter 4 and Chapter 5, watch all that play out, because he has the ability to directly connect himself to the 0 point and see what is actually going on around the entire Reality Zero. After that got destroyed, it severed the connection, which made Geno extremely horrified, and not only that, it made him extremely mad, because not only the 7 implemented this, but also he fears that the last reality is going to take action against it and bring back the nothing. But in order to do this, he needed to infiltrate the last reality in a way, so I assume that in some unknown time between Chapter 5 and Chapter 6, he probably was able to beat up some last reality members and decide to kidnap the Dark Voyager in a way, since he's a last reality member for a very long time. And what's crazy is that he recruited him to do this plan. Like, while Geno's away pulling the strings and pretending to be the so-called diverged timeline visitor, Dark Voyager's plan is to get all the 0 point shards to build the 0 point for his master, Geno. And it turns out that the Dark Harvester was actually built by Geno himself, because mind you, the Imagined Order and Geno had studied the last reality too. They used corruption cubes, chaos cubes, red cubes, which we saw back in Fortnite OG Chapter 1 Season 5. Despite the blue cube appearing in Chapter 2 Season 7 through the Mothership, it ended up in Quava 4 in Chapter 2 Season 8 before it got destroyed, so they studied that blue cube as well. Geno uses that advantage for the Dark Harvester to place a massive chaos cube he got from the last reality's cube cradle, I assume, and place it towards the middle of the Dark Harvester as you saw here. And Dark Voyager takes action, and then Geno decides to pull the strings. He does repeat what's going on back in Chapter 1. He comes to Reality Zero, well, not Reality Zero, he comes to like Reality Unknown, his artificial Reality Zero, and then some of the events look the same but different. And then it was not until the Rocket event, which he has the ability to use this red rift anomaly, which is this red butterfly you see here. He used that advantage to place it on top of his rocket, and it actually worked. He was able to use that advantage and blast himself off to be with the Dark Voyager to meet him up, and it actually worked. Meaning he can travel through realities that are beyond the unknown or something like that, or beyond the nothing. I don't know what it is, like the unknown or the nothing. Let me know, guys. And after this scenario is done, it's appeared that back in Reality 783, that appeared that I thought that the last reality created a Dark Presence since he looked like a last reality member, but it turned out it was actually created by Geno himself, since he commissioned the Dark Presence to be there to get Hope Jones, which he knows as Ancient Jones. Since he's known Jones, he pretends to not know such thing, but he knows Ancient Jones for a long time, so he gets Hope and Ancient Jones and the others to reach the 0 point shard for a very long time. It wasn't until 0 hour after the fact that once the Dark Presence is decommissioned or deactivated by Geno, he manipulates the 0-point shard in a way where he takes Hope and Jones to reality 266. His former reality which he took over many years prior. Where in Little Blabs, his separate company, or a dummy company which he created to extract 0-point energy through these particle accelerators, the 0-point shard is placed with the panels. This is where he commences the Dark Voyager to do that advantage to scan the shard to find all the other shards that are scattered to different realities. And throughout Chapter 7 Season 1 to Chapter 7 Season 2, Dark Voyager has been going through reality after reality to get the 2 other shards, and then in reality 337 this other shard that's placed in a capsule in a Elite space, which is a former Imagined Order base in reality 337. And while this is happening around Chapter 7 Season 1, Geno, while still playing his role as Visitor, decides to travel to reality 266 to meet up with his daughter, the Order, which the Order doesn't realize that it's her father that's underneath the suit that he created, and travels through a red rift like we see last time. He almost crashes his rocket to here, then he lands his rocket safely, and then tells that you're not the same Order, and the Order thinks that it's not the same Visitor. He looks very different, and it was extremely awkward. They have fights. And not only that, the Foundation also returns. He gets frozen, but was able to set himself free. They set up the new sanctuary. They even check the status of the 7 members, and you can see the Imagine is deceased. The Visitor, the real Visitor, the Scientist, and the Origin are all chromed. The Paradigm is deceased, and the Singularity is set to return. Despite that the Order criticized the Singularity in a way for being an IO member and never worked with us, which Geno is listening very closely to what his daughter is saying. In fact, Geno, not only between Chapter 7 Season 2, but also Chapter 7 Season 3 as of now, is actually listening to former Imagined Order members, especially for Jones, Dr. Sloan, Singularity, Sadia, and the others, to see what they're actually criticizing the Imagined Order for, especially for Geno. And if you take a look at the voice lines from the Order in the location Bellwood, you can see that she says this, and I'm gonna show you this right now. Guys, you know what I just found out recently? Check this out. Watch how I can talk to the Order. See, this is the Order reforged, even though she has her old suit back. I don't know what happened to her new suit. If you take a look about the question about Geno, look what she'll say. My father Geno was a monster who died pursuing his perfect reality. A megalomaniacal control freak who abandoned his daughters for more obedient pets. And he's the reason my sister is dead. He won't be mourned by anyone who knew him. Guys, is she a dumb? Because here's the thing. The reason why the Imagines didn't survive, even in the comics, and Collision, if you take a look, they're not fully immortal. They can die. They're imperfect, according to Geno, because when Geno created those 2, they are actually imperfect daughters. So he replaced them both by sending them to the loop, and as a result, he created 2 stronger snapshots, like Snapshot Imagine and Snapshot Order. And because of all of this, the Imagine died because she's imperfect, and the Order would soon probably be deceased the same way because she's imperfect as well. Despite they have longevity and probably not as much immortality as Geno, Geno's the only one who is perfect, quote-unquote, and absolute immortal. And in these ways, you can actually tell as to why the Order is very dumb, because she didn't realize that Geno is absolute immortal and he can survive anything, because he can't die. Like, when you're immortal, you cannot die at all. Like, you don't age, despite that Geno had aged a little bit. And I bet that in this instance, that the way that Geno is hearing this, he is actually extremely upset and extremely aggressive underneath his mask and under his breath, but doesn't want to show this because he doesn't want the others to find out. As we go back to Chapter 7 Season 2 to Shattered, we can see what is going on. You can see Dark Voyager grabbing the shards, such as the Swift Shard and the Anti-Gravity Shard from Squibbly Shores, and attempts to grab the Frozen Shard next to Frigid Fortress during the Shatter event, which him and the Ice King became temporarily allies, while the Visitor, the Foundation, and the others are getting ready to take out the Ice King and Dark Voyager. And somehow Geno created this weapon where he can actually shock the Foundation. And that's because the original plan was to use this device to disable the shield, which is called a shield breaker. And the Geno made that advantage to actually break the shields from the Dark Harvester. But then it ended up somehow malfunctioning, but it's meant to do that on purpose. And the Foundation decides to instead throw the shield breaker towards the Dark Harvester, and it breaks the whole shield anyway, as this some type of plan B advantage. And as the fight goes on, while the Foundation and the Ice King are fighting each other, and then the Foundation gets refrozen, not dead, but just refrozen. The Dark Voyager kills the Ice King, betrays him, and merges with his body to get his final form. He merges all the 7 shards together to form a reality warping effect, which caused the island to turn into fire, ice, probably the underworld, a desert, green, and it's just shifting a bunch of realities, similar to what we saw back in Chapter 2, Season 6's Zero Crisis finale. It's like a repeat of Zero Crisis finale, but even more crazier, as this involves a rebuilding the Zero Point. And behind the scenes, Geno sees this, that it's going to plan, the Zero Point is being rebuilt, and Jones doesn't realize this because he sees that everything is getting destroyed. And that's not until us, the Loopers, uses the Infinity Blade from the butterflies from that strange looking voice. And were able to slice the Dark Harvester in half, destroying it altogether. But it was already too late, as the Zero Point was able to reform itself altogether, and the island turned very different. It turned into an even horrendous version of Golden Coast, but if you take a look at the Golden Coast island, it looks like a rift. And then as we reach to the very end, we can see that Jones noticed that the Zero Point is rebuilt, and then the visitor says, "Oh man, the mission has failed." And then Jones is like, "The enemies have one step ahead of us, and I don't know what's going on here," until Dark Voyager appears. And then all of a sudden, as Jones was asking for help, the visitor ends up shooting Jones on the side. Not killing him, but just injuring him in a way to reveal his face.
Everything is going according to plan.
What is this? Geno?
Yup, Geno.
It's been you all along?
The 7 may still prove useful to me. I fear the same cannot be said for you, Agent Jones.
What are your orders, Master?
And the way that Geno said Agent Jones in a very scary manner proves to my point that Geno's not stupid. Geno knows exactly who Jones is, because Jones worked for the Imagined Order and knows Geno, but has never seen his face until Collision, because Geno has been hiding under the shadows after fears of the 7 tried to take back the Zero Point and free it, and because of this, Geno went to hiding, and his face remains anonymous until he faked his death, and then now he appears in front of Jones, and Jones recognizes immediately, and Geno realizes Agent Jones is there, and kicks him off the side, and then Dark Voyager goes up in front to Geno, tells him, "What are your orders, Master?" And then it ends here. And as of Chapter 7, Season 3, Geno decides to put back his visitor helmet on to disguise himself again because Dr. Sloan and the others are here. He has to make sure that he keeps this disguise very clear, as they won't even recognize him at all, the face and the voice. And while this is happening, as Dr. Sloan and the others, especially Hope and the Order, are coming to save Jones, he decides to, make up a story saying that Jones got shot by the Dark Voyager, we must save him, and right now Jones is on a tank, which is a very strange reference to something I've seen before. Oh, that's what I was thinking about. Same thing for here. Almost like a Bacta tank where it just heals your wounds. And guys, for moments like this, I wish Jones a speedy recovery, and hopefully that once he wakes up, I hope he exposes Geno. But I really hope that Dr. Sloan and the others do not call Jones crazy, as they're gonna think that he's hallucinating. And for most of the Imagined Order members, well, former members, saying that Geno is quote-unquote dead is very, very, very weird, because they didn't even realize that Geno's still alive. They thought that Geno died, but they forgot that he's immortal and can come back to life at any given time. And he can control his own cells using his consciousness, which is a very big thing as to what Geno is controlling, because every cell that travels to every reality, that's his consciousness, and then every reality he goes to, he witnessed what's going on, and then he has also good memory since he can remember everything on what just happened over here. And as he's finally rebuilt, he always remembers the one thing only, the 0 point, and then another thing, Agent Jones, who betrayed the Imagined Order. Despite that he tries to act like he doesn't know anything, as in the comic you can see he says, "Who's this blonde fellow?" Which is very, very rage bait, since Geno loves to rage bait everybody, especially for Dr. Slone's Singularity and the others, even his own daughter, the Order, who is still alive. But the biggest question about all this is, what bigger plan does Geno have for all of us in Fortnite Chapter 7? Well, Order Restored. It's unlike the other lore YouTubers like Scyan and Rezztro, as they explain about Geno's return and how he's gonna reform the Imagined Order. Well, that could be the case for Fortnite Chapter 7, as it's meant to be the chapter where it's supposed to be the reformation of the Imagined Order. We already got like Imagined Order fragments like the Elites and Dr. Slone's heist crews and stuff like that, as well as the new 7, which is only led by the Order. The Foundation is frozen, and the Visitor, or Geno, is just still disguising himself, waiting to be revealed within the next couple months or so, or the next season or so, depending on how this goes. And in this rivalry scene, I don't think the Foundation nor the Ice King won. Geno's the one who's the true winner, because he was able to get the 0 point. He got rebuilt under Dark Voyager through Geno's orders, and kaboom, the 0 point's rebuilt and the island looks different. And I can also assume that this whole Reality 266 is a planet itself. Since I took a look at a live event, I could see some crust, and as you can see through Lethal Labs or Dark Dominion, you can see through this globe, it's actually a planet, and that's where the island Golden Coast was located, now Shatter Coast. This whole Reality 266, now known as the new Reality 0, is a whole planet, unlike the other realities where it's just double island, single island with a bunch of crust underneath, or an island with no bubble and it's just free floating. This, just like the Save the World reality and all, is a planet. From my thoughts about the live event Shattered was extremely insane, because this is like one of the first live events since Collision where the Foundation and Geno are actually introduced. Like, the only time we see the Foundation and Geno was the Foundation in his old suit and Geno as a silhouette, but then we can actually see Geno, this time underneath his own personal 7 suit, or the so-called Visitor, and the foundation of his new suit, and now he's frozen by the Ice King. The strings that Geno just pulled was actually a genius idea for him to rebuild the Imagined Order. As now, not only that Geno's in the Golden Coast, Shatter Coast Island, but also Dr. Sloan, the Singularity, Zodiac, the Order, Jules, and many others. They are former Imagined Order agents and members of the Inner Circle and the head of defense, and Geno is the founder and leader. So at any given time, Geno can actually rebuild the Imagined Order as a whole up until Chapter 7 Season 4, as the time will tell. And as a result, Chapter 7 Season 3 is only just the beginning of Order Restored as a whole, because everything is just going to plan. You got the 0 point, the island, Geno, the Inner Circle, everything. And all he has to do is build a brand new vault underneath it and place the 0 point there. But before he can do that, he needs to stabilize the 0 point first. Well, luckily he got Dr. Sloan on his side, despite that Dr. Sloan does not realize that it's Geno underneath a mask. And you know what's even more crazier? The sprites from Reality 783 and the Sprite Utopia are actually those 0 point anomalies, which is filled with 0 point energy. And Dr. Sloan actually explains that the only way to stabilize the 0 point again, and to make sure the cracks are filled, is to make sure we get those sprites and put them in those capsules over there and send them through a specialized rift where it can be sent to the 0 point through the middle. And once all of that is done within the next couple of months, that could probably stabilize the 0 point in a way, which is a genius idea since Dr. Sloan's a total genius, other than Geno. And that could mean something for the future of Fortnite, since this utopia is not by the last reality, which I feared that. And I think this type of utopia is what is set up by Geno, is actually a very genius idea by Geno. Like, he has to use the last reality as a scare tactic in order to rebuild the Imagined Order, because the Imagined Order has been fighting back the last reality for thousands of years, and they use last reality technologies such as the Chaos Cubes, the Corruption Cubes, the Storm, and the Chrome to use that advantage to gain momentum, control, and most of all, colonize multiple realities using those weapons. And there's one bigger question that the Fortnite community needs to know. Is Geno directly connected to the Nothing? Because if you take a look in the 0 point, Geno in this way looked like a Last Reality member. Yellow eyes, the purplish-like skin, this cube-like corruption energy just flowing around, the storm-like structure, similar to how we saw the Dark Presence. Is Geno connected to the Nothing, or is he the Nothing in a physical body? I don't even know. Like, this is like a stupid theory that I just made to give y'all some type of conception as to if Geno is the Nothing, or if Geno works for the Nothing, or is the Herald of the Nothing, despite Dark Voyager is the Herald of Geno, of his redacted team, since the Imagined Order in their description formally like Dr. Sloan. Speaking of which, let me take a look at my locker over there, because I have the original Dr. Sloan, and as you can see, look, redacted. And this old facility that we saw in Chapter 2 also says redacted. Dark Voyager's skin, like, if you take a look over here, Dark Voyager, reality redacted. Redacted. It's the same thing. Like, this is how we can tell that Dark Voyager is not just a Last Reality member. He's an Imagined Order member, like a high-ranking member of the Imagined Order, probably part of the Inner Circle. Just like the Cube King, Dark Voyager must have been kidnapped by the Imagined Order for being a Last Reality member, and before Geno can actually execute him, he realized that Dark Voyager can be a great asset for the Imagined Order. So it turned out Dark Voyager this whole time has been working for the Imagined Order for thousands of years, and used the golden cubes for that advantage to gain control of the 0 point once again, just like in the olden days. Which, yet again, is a very genius idea as to what Geno just implemented. Guys, let me know in the comments below, how do you think of Fortnite Chapter 7, and what other plans does Geno have for us in the future? Let me know. And as always, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video, as I'll be covering more on Fortnite Chapter 7 Season 3 Runners.